Yo, what is up guys, Delboy here, aka Blue Collar Sports TV. Hopefully you guys are doing well. If you're new here, smash that like, hit subscribe, all of that good stuff. So another one of my heavyweight prospect videos. Today we shall be covering Oleksandr Zakhozhyi. Now Oleksandr Zakhozhyi is a Ukrainian heavyweight prospect. He's still relatively young at 27 years old. He's an orthodox fighter and he is listed at a massive 6'9". So he's certainly got dimensions that you would like in a heavyweight. Having said that, actually, when you look at the guy's weights on BoxRec, he's actually weighed in at the high 220s and low 230s. So despite being 6'9", that's not the heaviest weights I've ever seen, to be honest. And I'll actually touch on that in a second. But yeah, on paper, Oleksandr Zakhozhyi, certainly an interesting prospect in terms of, his physical dimensions at the very least. Now, when you're talking about Ukrainian fighters, you would almost automatically assume that they all have extensive amateur backgrounds. Most of these guys do. However, from what I've read of Oleksandr Zakhozhyi, he doesn't have this high-level amateur background, this extensive amateur background. And when you watch this guy fight, I think it is quite apparent, to be honest. Now, like I said, Zakhozhyi does have some rather interesting physical attributes which can be built upon with good training and good learning. But, in terms of his pure boxing skill, for a guy of 6'9", I don't think the guy does a particularly good job at managing the distance. He's actually got quite light feet for a guy of 6'9". His hand speed is respectable and he's certainly got solid power. So he's got some nice attributes again which can be built upon. But when he boxes behind that jab, he lets his opponents get inside far too easily. We saw that in his last fight against Konstantin Dobyshenko. Dobyshenko was able to get on the inside and work far too easily. As a guy who's 6'9" with a crazy reach, you're going to want to keep your opponents at the end of those long punches. And Zakhozhyi, in my opinion, doesn't do that consistently enough. I want to see him improve that jab and his general understanding of his distance, distance control. Zakhozhyi really needs to improve on that because from watching a few of his fights, a few of his highlights, he does let guys get inside fair too easily. Now, one positive about that, one thing I will give him, for a guy who's 6'9", he does actually shorten his punches up fairly well, up close. It's not like the guy is totally devoid of any skill on the inside. No, he can throw punches up close, but ultimately it's not where he should be, and he doesn't look as comfortable doing that. Another thing, when guys do get on the inside, Zakhozhyi doesn't seem the strongest, despite being 6'9", he kind of seems a bit fragile, a bit frail, to be honest, and maybe that's because of the weights he's coming in at. The high 220s, the low 230s, for a guy who's 6'9", is very light. Maybe Zakhozhyi needs to bulk up to improve his punching power and to improve his strength on the inside. Because if you watch his last fight with Konstantin Dobyshenko, Dobyshenko was doing some really good work up close and he was having some really good success, physically in terms of pure strength and pushing Zakhozhyi back. So I certainly think Zakhozhyi, first and foremost, he needs to bulk up a little bit, get a bit stronger, and then he needs to really work on his craft, essentially, keeping guys behind that jab. Use that jab with more authority. Zakhozhyi doesn't throw that jab with authority. He kind of flicks it out there to try and keep range and throw that right hand behind it, which does carry good power. But I want to see Zakhozhyi use that jab far more effectively. Don't just use it as a throwaway shot to set up your right hand, Use it as a ramrod to keep your man honest, to keep your guy on the outside. Because that lack of a proper jab, a lack of a hard jab, is allowing these guys to get on the inside, And, for me, Zakhozhyi needs a lot of work. There's a lot of physical attributes which can be built upon, like I said. The height, the reach, seems to have respectable power. He's got relatively quick feet for a big man, relatively quick hands. So he does have some good natural attributes, there's no doubt about it. But he needs to work on his craft, and it's going to take him a while before he steps up to even fringe world level. He's going to need a lot of sort of tough, durable guys who can take him rounds, who can show him some new things, basically. He needs a lot of seasoning, a lot of development. I think Zakhozhyi is one of those guys where if the right trainer doesn't get hold of him, he's going to come unstuck very shortly and against a low-level opponent. However, if a world-class trainer manages to get Zakhozhyi, I think they can do something with him. Not saying he'd be a champion or anything like that, but maybe like a fringe contender, something like that along those lines. So, listen, I've seen a few people rate Zakhozhyi online. I'm not really one of them, to be honest. I've got to be frank, I'm not really one of them. I think he's okay. I think he could be like a good fringe contender at best. But I'm not really seeing it. I'm seeing too many flaws with Zakhozhyi. But we'll see, man. The guy is still fairly young at 27 years old. He does have good physical attributes. He can punch a bit. So maybe Zakhozhyi can improve to the extent where he actually does have a good career at world level. We shall see. But, you know, from what I see, I wouldn't call Oleksandr Zakhozhyi like an elite level prospect. You know, a guy who I'm sure is going to be like a really, really good elite level fighter. I can't really say that with any conviction, to be honest. So, certainly a guy to watch out for. Certainly a guy to follow. But not one of those guys where you'd put any real stock into him becoming like a heavyweight champion or anything like that. You know, in Zakhozhyi's next sort of fights, I would like to see him fight guys along the lines of Tom Little. You know, tough, durable journeyman who can go a few rounds. Those sort of guys. But they're the sort of fights Zakhozhyi needs in his next 2-3 fights. After that, then maybe take a slight step up. But yeah, those are my brief thoughts on Oleksandr Zakhozhyi. Share your thoughts below. Peace.